admit people. Yeah, so since we have 1 hour, we are going to start. My name is Janet Kavuda. I work for Friends of Nairobi National Park and I'm a volunteer with African Sustainability Network. It's an organization that we champion for sustainability and proper waste management. Yeah, so on our panel, we're going to have Emma. Emma is a young lady who's passionate about conservation and sustainability. She works with other initiatives in conservation. She also works with schools and universities to help in achieving the 10% forest cover in the country. Yeah, the other one on the panel is Kaluki Paul. I know most of you know these people. So Kaluki is the founder, the co-founder and executive director at KEAN, a Kenya-based climate activist and environmental defender. A fun fact about Kaluki, he loves forest works. Yeah, the other one on the panel is Winnie Cheche. Winnie is a conservationist, environmental blogger, climate activist, and wildlife voice. Winnie, through her blog, she promotes awareness on sustainable living and wildlife conservation. Karibuni sana. So the other one on the list is Caroline Kibi, an environmental scientist, a consultant, a researcher, and a scholar. She writes to inform on matters environment and development. She's also a volunteer, a community leader, and a nature enthusiast. So we also have Michael from Miti Alliance. Michael works with organization, communities, and also schools in advocating for tree planting and also restoring the 10% tree cover. So those are our 5 panelists. Karibuni sana. So thank you so much for tuning in. And for today, we are going to discuss efforts that different organizations have put in ecosystem restoration, and also the challenges that they faced during the COVID-19 period, and also discuss regulations and policies that play a crucial role in environmental management and conservation. So as we start with Emma Ochieng from TBEi, you can be writing your questions on the chat box, and then they'll be addressed later after all the panelists have submitted their presentations. So Emma, karibu, start with your presentation.
Thank you, Janet. Let me share my screen. Paul, please could you help me share my screen?
Yeah, you should be able to share right now. I've just checked that.
Okay. Okay, so this is my presentation for today, being Earth Day, and the theme being Restore Our Earth. So the efforts that we are trying to put in is basically we are tree planting, because we do believe that trees make our place look more beautiful, and also trees are very important when it comes to combating climate change because they act as carbon sinks. Then we also do environmental education, and the importance of this is that when people are educated on environmental matters, they become more conscious of the environment, and there's also a positive change in their attitudes. We also do collaborations where we collaborate with other initiatives. So like in this picture, we were collaborating with Michael Wayaki, the founder of Miti Alliance, and we had gone to pick up some trees, which we were going to plant in a certain school called St. Joseph. Yeah, then the effects of COVID-19 on our activities. So basically, because of COVID-19, we've had to reschedule the meetings and cancel some events because of COVID-19, because people need to just take care. There are also some restrictions and we just have to follow the COVID protocols. Yes, the challenges hindering the restoration of our earth. So the challenges that we face when it comes to restoration is the governance. We have poor governance, whereby sometimes the leaders that we elect, they don't advocate for things like taking climate action seriously, and also when it comes to matters to do with environmental degradation, they are not willing to restore, to contribute or to fund projects that are aimed at restoration. There's also the challenge of implementation, whereby we usually see that there are usually many meetings that are held and discussions revolving around climate change and sustainable development. But at the end of the day, nothing is usually done. We just talk, but in real sense, nothing is done. So that is really a challenge, and also just insufficient / misuse of funds that are geared towards support of green innovation / initiatives. I think most of the panelists over here will agree to this point, because it's really a big challenge that we face when it comes to restoration of our earth. Yeah, the regulations and policies. The policies and regulations play a big role, but you see, like in a country like Kenya, as I've said before, we have the meetings, we have the discussions, but unfortunately, when it comes to the implementation, like things aren't done. So that's really sad, considering people really want to see a difference being made now that climate change is really a big issue at the moment, and environmental degradation. Yeah, so that's my presentation. You can reach out to me via email at emma@yenu4@gmail.com, or my contact, which is 0724 511 758. Yeah, and thank you so much. Over to you, Janet.
Thank you so much, Emma, for your presentation. Emma is the founder of Towards a Better Earth Initiative. TBEi, you can check their social media platforms, and they normally have volunteer activities, and maybe consider you joining. Okay, so the next presenter is going to be Kaluki Paul.
Thank you, Janet.
Share.
Okay, let me try and share my screen. So thank you so much, everyone. So I'll go straight to my first slide.
Carol, before you go on, Emma, could you stop sharing your screen, please?
Are we ready?
You're good, Carol.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, thank you so much, Janet, for this opportunity. Us at Enviro World, we are involved in quite a lot of restoration activities. But before that, I just want to say that Enviro World Initiative is a non-governmental organization that anchors on 4 pillars, that is conservation, climate action, storytelling and documentation, sensitization, and advocacy. But as to our restoration efforts, I'll just touch on 2 key ones, which is ecosystem restoration and waste management. And our restoration, ecosystem restoration, our past and present activities are on land restoration, which involve invasive weed removal. For instance, Parthenium, we've been involved in quite a lot of tree planting initiatives. We also have like a tree nursery that gives a chance to volunteers to learn, and also young kids to learn about conservation and tree planting. And we're also involved in restoration of the Kapnarok, which is an ongoing initiative. The reason why we are at the Kapnarok is because this is a source of livelihood to the community around the lake, and also a source of water to wildlife and so many other things. So it is a key feature that we really want to, take it up beyond where we are right now. To waste management, we've been involved in quite a lot of cleanups, sensitization on keeping our parks clean, and a virtual sensitization campaign that was on dimming single-use plastics. COVID-19 has been really hard on us, so we had to like reschedule our meetings, postpone activities. And when it comes to conservation activities, you're required to be in person, like participate personally. So if you cannot be there, then it means nothing can go on. But on a positive note, we've had a chance to rethink our conservation approaches. So how can we go about our conservation without being there? So we thought it's good for us to strengthen our partnerships. So if we are not in Baringo, our partner can, implement our activities. If they are not in Nairobi, we can implement the activities. So basically, that's what we've learned through COVID. And on a personal note, I realized that it is very, very important to change my own daily carbon footprint. How much waste do I generate? How much water do I use and waste? Do I conserve energy? So those are some of the things that, COVID-19 has taught us, in as much as it has been a huge challenge. Has it been, okay, now I'm going to look at the hindrance to restoration. There are many things, and it always depends on the kind of ecosystem that you want to conserve, the community, what are the social or cultural aspects of that community, or the community around the ecosystem that you want to conserve. How is the environment in that place? And I'll try to look at the things that Emma did not mention. And one of them is knowledge and information. Where knowledge is limited, and especially at the community level, it becomes very, very hard to implement restoration initiatives. So you really have to try and educate the community, or the people who are not, they don't know much about environment, climate change. What is climate change? Most people just hear the name climate change. So what is it all about? We talk about climate action. What is it about? Land disputes is, well, it may affect the local community a lot. We may not see it in the urban areas where we know, the lands are demarcated for green spaces and all the other things, maybe parks, beaches and all that. But when you go to the community, where community claims the land belongs to them, and the government wants to convert that land into maybe a forest or a park, it becomes a challenge. And this is something that we've realized in Lake Rock, Mau Forest, that everyone knows about it. So land disputes is really a serious challenge. You cannot go about your restoration activities if it's not solved. When it comes to policy implementation, poor coordination, it's also a challenge. Where policies are not working, you cannot implement the environmental initiatives. You cannot really get the chance to go into the community, recruit people, or just implement your own activities if the policy is not working. Or you can implement, but you'll be doing almost nothing. And we can see what's happening with charcoal burning right now. The other day, there was an article in the Daily Nation that Kenya has overtaken Somalia in exporting charcoal. So why is it that that is happening? So because maybe our policies are not working, or no one really cares about, reforesting and conserving the forest. So that brings me now to deforestation. Deforestation is a major, major problem when it comes to reforesting. You plant. We are now in the phase of, trying to achieve the 2 billion tree seedling target by 2022. But if we are deforesting at this rate, where we are like the main exporter in East Africa, what is going to happen? Are we going to achieve that? Are we going to achieve our restoration targets? What does this day mean to you if that is happening? On this other picture here, this was taken in Baringo. There is huge market of charcoal burning in Baringo, yet that almost 50% of the area is like arid and semi-arid, but people still burn charcoal. So it's a serious problem. So now what should we do? So we need to strengthen our sensitization efforts. If we can form partnerships with other organizations, youth groups, collaborate so that we can, achieve our restoration targets, I think it would be a good thing. And also if you can get a chance to, source for grants and well-wishers, because conservation activities are very expensive. You need to pay volunteers sometimes, you need to purchase maybe tree seedlings and many other things. So if you can get a chance to come together, collaborate, and put together some funds, then I think we are going to advance our restoration initiatives or conservation initiatives. And now, what about environmental policies and regulations? Do we have them? Are they working? Are they effective? Yes, we do have them, so many of them. In Kenya, we are guided by the Environment Management and Coordination Act, 1999. It has been updated to 2015. I think almost all our acts, our bills, they are coined based on that act. And so most of our policies are working, some are not working, some are just good in paper. And so that brings me to make a conclusion that most of our policies are very weak and that we do not have enough sensitization. Most of our citizens are not aware of most of the environmental laws and policies that exist. For instance, if a sewer line breaks right now, and we are in the rural areas, do people really know what channels to go to report? What should they do if that sewer line was broken by maybe an investor? Do they even know that polluter pays principle exists and all the other principles or policies? So that is where we are at. That is still a major challenge. And I'll just touch on maybe one of the policies, and we have the plastic ban. I think it came into effect in 2017. It has been effective since then because we have working regulations. And a 2018-2020 report, that was an internal assessment by NEMA, claims that we are at 80% compliance rate. Well, some people will say it's true, some will say it's not true. And this is because we still see these plastic bags being used in our markets. So what is the problem? Is it because the regulations that are in place are not being implemented? Or is it because we don't really care? Or is it because of corruption, porous borders? So there's a lot. But if our policies and regulations were working, I think we could be at 100% or maybe 99%. And then I'll just go to the last one, the directive on banning single-use plastics in protected areas that are like beaches, forests, parks. Well, I think from my own experience, I don't think this is working as of now. Maybe you can say we are at 2% because most of our forests are still freely allowing people to go in with their plastic bottles. And I'll give a classic example is Ngong Forest, where at the entrance, you are told you're not supposed to go with the plastic bottles, maybe soda bottles, water bottles. And that is the people who are walking on foot. What about people who are in cars? No one cares to tell them. When you go into the park or into the forest, you meet children, you meet people who are selling waters and sodas. So is this directive really working? Why is it not working? Why are we playing double standards? So I think that is where we are at when it comes to our environmental policies and regulations. We still need to do a lot. And I think if they're not really well implemented, then we are not going to advance, any environmental or conservation initiative. We cannot achieve our targets. And lastly is we really need to redesign we need to redesign our policies. We need to strengthen and strengthen our implementation methods. I think that's it for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carol, for your presentation. Moving forward, I think with Emma's and Carol's presentation, we can see where the disconnect is. For a country that's trying to advocate for 10% tree cover by 2030, it's the same country that's the top exporter of charcoal. Rethink and see where as NGOs, as a non-profit organization, we can come in to have the influence. So the next speaker is Paul. Paul, feel free to share your screen and start your presentation.
Thanks so much, Janet. Hi, everyone. And happy Earth Day, happy Earth Day week to all of you. My name is Kaluki Paul, and I'm going to rather be speaking and not sharing a screen. And I trust it will be an interesting speech. If it gets boring, feel free to chat me on the chat box. But yeah, I'm with Kenya Environmental Action Network, and briefly what we do is that KEAN is a nation-facing network of climate and environmental enthusiasts that have come together to form a network that can advocate and lead on climate and environmental solutions in the country. We started sometimes in mid last year, and so this year will almost mark, June will almost mark our first anniversary. And some of the things we do are around these 4 programs on youth action, policy influence, knowledge sharing, and capacity building. And I'll just quickly talk through some of the things we've been able to do since we started last year in terms of restoration actions in the country. So far, most of the things are not actually different from what Emma and Caroline have spoken to, so I'll quickly just mention them. We've been engaging on tree planting and rather tree growing initiatives in different parts of the country. And notably, we've partnered with groups like Blue Earth Organization and Young Muslim Association to engage on mangrove restoration along Kenyan coast. And there's a goal to actually plant 10,000 mangrove trees in Mombasa with this organization. And we look forward to continue working on this and ensuring that we are part of the walk, so really walking the talk, not just talking the talk. And we've also led an environmental education in schools and also online. And I'd want to maybe single out a school in Machakos that we've been able to partner with another organization to deliver environmental education. And this was at St. Joseph's High School, which is like a boarding primary school in some remote areas in Machakos. And we were able to visit them and grow some trees, offer environmental education, and really lead the students in helping understand the stakes when it comes to environmental conservation, what we can do, and like maybe some of the challenges they're facing, and then how do they connect with the outside world beyond beyond schoolwork and all that. And then another thing has been on policy influence. So sometimes last year, for those of us who are a bit aware about the climate change discourse and the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, so KEAN alongside other partners were able to bring together this week-long national youth stakeholder consultation meeting, a workshop to sort of interrogate the nationally determined contribution that Kenya was submitting to the UNFCCC Secretariat. And so the aim was to actually see the gaps that are already existing in terms of restoration work and community action to engage in sustainable development, and then what influence can we have on these documents. So we were able to carry this week-long consultation, and the report is actually still being fine-tuned. And the opportunity here is that we are looking at how do we ensure that at least with this nationally determined contribution document, young people in Kenya can for the first time lead on restoration efforts on the ground, and therefore linking the policies, regulations to community action on the ground. And that was, it's already going so well, and we'd be happy to update people on the progress and how then we can take this opportunity to engage in this space. And we're also big on civil action, and maybe I can speak about myself because I've been an activist for quite some time. So maybe to draw your attention to Decolonize, which has been like a successful campaign that has been run by several NGOs in the country, and for which I was personally like I was a part of with 350.org. And this campaign sort of sought to stop the erection of the 1050 megawatts of coal-fired power plant in Lamu, and as of December, I believe 2019, we were able to at least win the court petition that was filed at the National Environment Tribunal. And so what this does is that with at least with the campaign being halted, you know, there is a chance for nature, there's a chance for community, and there's a chance for the climate system to be, you know, to be regulated better in the country. And so this also indirectly links to ecological restoration in the country. And I believe then that's where the voice of civil society comes in to ensure that we are also lobbying and we are like calling out bad development pathways and bad development in our projects. And also maybe what Carol mentioned about Lake Kamnarok. So KEAN has been part of this, just trying to see how we can support and ensure that Lake Kamnarok ecosystem doesn't go you know, to extinction, and that whatever we can do to address this or to help people that are championing on the ground, then we can at least put our hand forward to, you know, collaborate and to see how we can restore these key ecosystems from destruction. In terms of COVID challenges, I think it's not also unique for ourselves. Just like what Carol and Emma have mentioned, is that obviously, especially for those of us who are in Nairobi, you realize there is no chance to have many physical meetings, right? So we find ourselves in that situation where we have to innovate and you know, have more online facing initiatives and convenings, and still, you know, manage to collaborate with people, or how we can, you know, offer some support online to help people on the ground achieve some of their you know, campaign works and projects. And just recently we were able to partner with 350.org to co-host the Global Just Recovery Gathering, which was specifically centered around nature positive recovery and restoration initiatives from across the country, the world rather. And so we were able to showcase some very good restoration works happening across the world, and some also, you know, from Kenya and other parts of the continent in Africa. And last week, I believe at least this week, so we also hosted the Youth Speaks 2021, a collaboration with Earth Uprising, which was meant to actually feed into President Biden's Climate Leaders Summit that is starting today. And so through this small action, we believe that it really helps to achieve the main agenda of restoration and equipping the grassroots with the information and the capacity they need to advocate for nature and for communities. And lastly, I just mentioned this in the interest of time, some of the challenges of restoration that I think I've realized, and we realized is key. I think the number one on complacency, it's been mentioned by previous panelists. And when it comes to regulations, I think it goes further than just drafting them and really publishing them. The implementation is very important, and that's one of the challenge. Then I think the question of tokenizing, most young people, grassroots and indigenous communities have been at the center of tokenization, where these big global organizations come and romanticize the issue of restoration or conservation. And so most people get drawn to the center of conservation, but not with the interest of conserving or restoring, but rather for these big corporations to, you know, run away and take pride in the fact that, oh, we reached young people, we reached some indigenous communities in Kenya, we reached some farmers, but there's no real impact happening on the ground. And then there is also, you know, again, that ties to fortress conservation, and Africa, Kenya specifically is a very good example of this, that there's a lot of Western inspired and colonial-based conservation models, which, you know, kick grassroots and communities out of their areas or their territories for quote unquote conservation. So we also need to really ask ourselves, really, is it conservation or is it conning people into conservation? We're talking about restoring our lands and territories. There's also a bit of knowledge gaps, and I believe when it comes to restoration, indigenous and local groups, farmers, and young people play a key role in terms of, helping bridge the gaps and tell the alternative knowledge that has already been, borrowed over time and exercised by this community. So we do need the place of indigenous culture, religious, and also the youth perspective when it comes to the discourse of conservation and restoration. To reach out to us, I'll quickly share our email on the chat, and it's a pleasure to get this opportunity. Back to you, Janet.
Thank you so much, Paul, for your presentation. And also, we commend you for the good work that you do. So our next presenter is going to be Winnie. Winnie, feel free to speak.
Okay, thank you for that, Janet. So I hope everyone is doing okay on this other day, and you guys are taking good care of yourselves. And I hope you can be able to see my screen, right? Janet, you can help confirm that you can see my screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's visible. Yeah.
Okay, so this is Winnie Cheche. I'm an environmentalist, a conservationist, climate change activist, and a blogger. So literally, I use my platform to promote education and awareness when it comes to climate issues, wildlife conservation, activism, as well as to tell the green stories like what you guys are doing. So wherever I bump into you, and then your story is so amazing, so I try to spread it out to get more people to do such things. So basically, on a personal level, I try my best to practice what I preach, speak up for the voiceless. So the meaning why I'm saying I try my best, I wouldn't say that I'm 100% green, right? So I still have things that I need to change. Like when it comes to hair, I still do braids. We know braids are plastic. And now that is what we're trying. I would love us to put that narrative, let us not look for perfect zero waste or perfect plastic, whatever. Let's make the perfect imperfections, because from there, at least now we can head the right way. So from what the previous people have said, it is quite evident we still have problems when it comes to our leaders and the policies, right? So on that, I have a twist on it. What if all of us started doing it from the individual level? Then we can influence the above, because we are the ones who put these leaders on check. We're the ones who give them the job. So why don't we do it from our end? Then we work our way out. So I'll start on the COVID, what COVID did to all of us. So yes, COVID restricted our participation in physical events, because basically, as I've said, I tell my green stories. So I'm needed to attend these physical events, whereby when you are trying to do the activism and everything online, when you have a physical backup, as Carol had emphasized, it is really helpful because people can see what you're doing. So if I tell you, let's promote mangrove forest, at least when I go there, we plant mangroves and we see that, we go back and check and say these mangroves are really growing. Then from there you can see okay, you are preaching whatever you are, okay, you are doing whatever you are preaching. So that is what COVID somehow took away from us. So we are not able to enjoy that fun part of it. So, and I really hope it will be done soon so that we can go back to planting trees, although places like Nairobi, that thing is being put down. So it's our efforts are not being seen. So the mangrove plant that I've said, because I think mangrove is one thing that has really stolen my heart. So I would love to go back to doing that. And then we have the cleanups, the workshop, among others. So as I'd said, physical actions kind of give the online events the best boost, hence important. With that said, it was not all loss. I would say that COVID also helped to open up the online platforms, because before, when we were starting, you would rarely see anyone to retweet your tweet or even pay attention to it. But at least now, with all the time and all the huge opportunities when it comes to online. We have now larger audiences, and now we are able to connect with like-minded people, because I came to understand. Now this one mainly started when we were doing our youth forum on NDCs. Like, we have so many young people doing amazing stuff in the different part of our world, but we are not able to connect because all of us are apart. But now the online was able to bring us together. So we're able to share ideas, and we're able to see like, okay, this is working in Nakuru, and this is what people are doing in Nairobi, right? So from there, now we're able to have like, we have the common goal, and we have different mechanism and tricks. So the online is where we just have like, you do a hybrid, because I was so happy that during the just recovery, like when Kevin was saying about the activism, like everything on activism, right? Just you don't have like, there is no plagiarism. If you have to steal whatever maybe I have created and make it better, please do, because the main goal here is to make sure that we have a healthier planet. So I'm really happy of what the online has grown into. We're able to connect from different people from different parts of the world. We're able to learn new tricks, because from what I've seen, like, we're able to like get new tricks, because we get like, the other time was chatting with the guys from Greenpeace UK, and now we started the interview, like they were telling me what they do on their activism on their end, and then what I do on my end, and it was two different methods, but they were giving the same results. And from there, could people say, okay, if you are doing this one and it's working, how can I like modify it? Because if you check, activism is not the same. Yes, Global South, we are affected, but you can get like, even if you go to the roads and everything, the way the protests work in the other countries may not work in our countries. Like, if you remember when we were fighting for the trees along Mombasa Road and Wayaki Way, right? The only one that succeeded was the one for the fig tree, which according to me, I didn't see it like a big win, because just was one tree. They were just, and they were, for them to saving it, it was just like an iconic. So it seems they really didn't get the logic, because for us, we were fighting for the existence of the trees. And that's why you saw even after the fig tree was saved, trees are continuing being cut, because like the leaders still don't get the why we want the green spaces to be protected. We don't want them to be to be put there like an icon. No, we want them because we need the cleaning of our atmosphere and everything, and for the mental cases. So we really need this tree. So I think that is one of the gaps that you're having. And I hope that by now, like having the backup from the communities going up, then from there, we are going to influence the leaders. Because at this particular point, either the leaders are ignorant, or they have refused to understand what you are trying to tell them. Because you can't tell me you would spend millions of shillings planting fake trees just because another president is coming to your country, but you cannot do the same to save your country from climate change. So it doesn't make sense. So those are some of the things that I really hope we are going to see change in the future. And okay, so the next one, that will say in generally what I would say are some of the challenges is greed. So this one is both on us as citizens, our leaders, and also like activists. So when I start with the leaders, most of them see like the green move as being, it will not bring profits. That's why you see in all the NDCs, no country, even the developed, is ready to drop everything down. They're like, give us next 10 years, give us next 30 years. And what they're forgetting is climate change is still happening. It doesn't like tell you, okay, you want 10 years, I'll give you that 10 years. No, it is making things worse. So that is the part that they're not saying. And then when we come to the citizens, right? Like we have that mentality of like, okay, I want to be seen, I want to go against something, right? So you are not going, you don't even bother understanding why are these people making noise about 1, 2, 3, 4. No, you are making fun of it. Like you see, I thought I was looking forward to like artists like assisting us, maybe even in planting trees. Nowadays they do it in a they do it awkwardly. Like it is not per se telling us to plant tree, but making fun of it, of which is not okay. So I think it is high time we take, because climate change is a serious thing, because I was listening to one of these podcasts by African Climate Conversation, and for them it is very different. They're unlike us who are now busy telling people defining climate change, what is causing climate change. For them, they have experiences. And there was this particular woman, her home, like it was taken away by a landslide. And up to date, she's like 3 years later, and she still has trauma. Whenever there's rain and then there's thunder, she like goes to shock, just because she remembers how she found her home all the way from the top of the mountain into the river. For her, she doesn't necessarily need to say like, okay, this is climate change. For her, that was her home was taken away. When we are doing all this, do we think of those people? Like, do we think what is happening in their lives? What has changed? So I think we are supposed like to change strategy and see what will work in the shortest time possible. Because like in Nairobi, if nothing is done, things are going to be worse. And then we have the issue of uninformed leaders and citizens. And that one now will
just
touch.
a disruption, really.
Yes.
Please try to wrap up faster so that we can also give the audience chance to bring in their questions.
Okay, sorry about that. So I'll fasten up. So the other challenge will be uninformed leaders and citizens. So we still have little information when it comes to climate change or wildlife conservation. And then we have ignorance by the involved parties. So people are yet to forsake the business as usual attitude. So that's why we have where we want to say, give us 10 years, then you're going to work on it. And then there is lack of flexible and sustainable alternative. So as much as we have all the alternatives being provided, I don't feel like it covers everyone. So I would really hope that for whatever is existing, we can modify it to like cover everyone, especially the end user who we are targeting in this fight. So on the policies and implementation, I would say that yes, we have good policies, but the problem is the poor implementation is wasting our good policies. And I also think the policing approach make it difficult for people to comply, as we are known best for going against the rules. So if they did it for the love of nature and conservation, nature conservation and preservation, it will be effective. So like plastic ban, lack of proper effective awareness campaign, people not really made understand why they should stop using plan A for plan B. In our case, in this course, like they don't understand why single plastic were banned. So because if they were made and helped to understand, they would manage to go for better reusable products. And then when you check on the charcoal burning, what I would like pose as a question is, do we have sustainable alternatives for the bigger population of users? Like that mom in the most interior places where even making a call is a problem. So they don't have network, they don't know what's happening on the world. And those who can barely get food every single day. For example, solar was one of the best alternatives until complication got introduced to it in process and it became burden to the users. Hence, they have started opting out, whereby you have to pay for a day for you to use the solar. Yet, so I think those are like, we should stop that. So, and also think about the cartels, like what has been happening with the charcoal burning. So this one goes back to the poor policing implementation, whereby if we banned logging, so why is charcoal burning still happening in large scales? So those I would love to check on such stuff. Okay, so due to time, I think I'll end there. So, and from how as we go on, what I'll kindly like ask us to check on is when you are making decision or when you're pushing for anything. As much as we have been pushing for our leaders, can we start now concentrating on the users? Like that person in the interior places, whoever is using that plastic, whoever is involved in these ones. So let us balance of them. Let's not forget them and concentrate too much on the leaders who maybe they're there just for 5 years and take whatever they're taking and go home. Thank you. So
yes, thank you, Winnie. So yeah, quickly. So Winnie has mostly mentioned about leadership. So elections are next year. So make sure you elect leaders who are talking about the green conversation. Yeah. So our last speaker is Michael. Michael, if you could take 4 to 5 minutes so that we can offer the participants time to ask questions, please.
Thank you. I will have to sue Winnie for taking my few minutes, but it's okay. I'll be quick and really share just a few things that have been brought out in the discussion so far. But yes, I'm from Miti Alliance. My name is Michael Ayaki, and I'm the founder. And the work that we've been doing is really conservation and also mostly planting and growing trees in schools. But a key aspect of it is the education side of it. And what I want to build up from Winnie's point is, say for example, if we think about how many schools are there, across the country, and how many, how much can we do as groups, especially on the point that was raised on partnership, collaboration, and how all of us can benefit from working with each other. I feel the environmental movement has been so fragmented for so many years, and it's about time that we who are working on this need to come together. And why is this so important? Is because that when you look at what needs to be done is so much as compared to the damage that is happening. Say, for example, what Carol mentioned on the charcoal. And I want to share with you something I saw from Canada. And this is Canada's income from their forestry department. And they are, they have sustainable forests. Again, from Winnie's point, solar, there was solar before. There are solutions that are needed. Now, we are in sub-Saharan Africa, and the more we are planting, the more people are also cutting down for charcoal, for timber, for wood. Like, we can't, act like we are in a vacuum. But this I see as a really big opportunity. Sadly, it costs a fortune. But this is how much Canada is earning from its incomes. And I want to even just speak to the numbers of each. Had opened it some time ago, but let me see. It is, if you think about what $1 billion is when you compare about Kenya's debt and how badly we are doing, even if we import charcoal, even if we import wood or timber from Tanzania, we are cutting a forest somewhere. So if you think about the Congo, we are even causing more damage to one of our main lungs. And I want to share now something else that I've also been researching on. And this is from New Zealand. This is the plan for New Zealand for 10 years. Imagine if we had a government that was thinking this far. Everybody has mentioned, the speakers have mentioned about policy. Imagine the amount of seedlings we need for a 1.7 billion shortage, the labor that we would give to youth, the land issues, the infrastructure needed, and the processing. Say, for example, for timber, and we have the Big Four agenda where we have the, what we call the one for construction. So we have to think ahead as activists, as environmentalists, as people who are really thinking about this, not only for just the Twitter campaigns or one-off campaigns, but long-term. Because people, the greatest challenge is that people still need paper, people still need wood, people still need charcoal. And it is so sad to see Ati Kenya now leading in charcoal export. As in, I felt so sad about it. And I look at a plan like this by New Zealand. They are thinking about their commercial sector. They are thinking about the departments. They are thinking about skills training, carpentry, TVETs. What NGOs would work with certain government departments. Forestry, commercial forestry. And this I call sustainable forestry, where we think about how many trees can be grown in specific areas. Then imagine if we were to think about the schemes that would come in, say like KTDA that needs trees for their coffee, for their tea. Now imagine this section here, schools, nurseries, and farmers, that we have a certain quota that needs to be done. So when I think about, us as a country and the things that we need to do, really, I'm beyond shocked to say that we are nowhere near where we can say we are doing the, like real impact. And now I'll give you the numbers for like Canada. The forest sector generated about 1.9 billion in revenue for provincial and territorial governments. The forest sector contributed about 23.7 billion to Canada's nominal gross domestic product in 2019. The value of Canadian forest product exports is about 33 billion in 2019. So there's conservation, there's the fight, there's the policy, there's all these things. So let's think of Canada as a model. Let's think of a country like New Zealand that's thinking of a 10-year plan. And let's think of us as sub-Saharan Africa, as Kenyans, where we know our rural side, people are still using firewood, they are still cutting the eucalyptus, they are still planting the eucalyptus. They live on barely so much amount of money per day. So we now must look at this problem holistically. Number one, we can create jobs through sustainable forestry. Number two, our forests won't be touched if we now have sustainable forests. Number three, imagine all the youth that can get also their nurseries running as well as schools, and then the education side of it. So I feel we really now must start thinking long term. And I'm so humbled and so happy to see everyone here. You guys are young. As in the next few years, me, I can't run as fast as you guys are running, because we've been here, we've been doing this. But we are ready to partner with anyone who's willing to go the long haul. We want to work with other like-minded organizations, but we are going to start processes that may not end in our time, or we may start things that we will actualize in 20 years. But either way, we are going to start them. But start thinking about the big solution that we have in sustainable forestry, but also start thinking about the charcoal problem as an inspirer, that people are still cutting trees. So you might plant 20,000 here, but another 50,000 have been cut on one side. So these are really the concerns that I'm seeing, but really looking forward to collaborating with everyone and making sure that we do something that has an impact. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michael, for your presentation. Yeah, just like you said, we need to have, and also like Winnie said there before, we need to have that personal responsibility. If you have an organization, if you're part of a group that's environmental oriented, every activity that you do, every other event that you plan, let's make it impactful. Like always look on how many people you get to influence towards a greener future. So as Wangari Maathai said, your little thing, what's that one impactful thing that you do? If on a personal level, if you have a piece of land, if your parents have a piece of land, what is it that you're doing in that piece of land that contributes either to greener air or to ecosystem restoration? Yeah, we need to look along that line, because when you start something that's impactful on a personal level, then you're able to spread that to the wider public. Yeah, so we'll be taking any questions. If you have any questions, you can raise hand or type on the chat box. Yeah. Also, I saw a lady called Monica. Monica talked about rangeland and dry land restoration. If you're still on, maybe you could tell us more about what if you're doing anything on that. maybe, yeah, you can be able to educate us more about that part. Monica, are you still on?
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Please proceed.
Yes, thank you for the invitation. And I really like this conversation now that it is a rainy season. We should also think of how do we secure our livelihoods, especially to the pastoralist community, because if you go to Moyale or Wajia, it is always very dry. So why don't we even think of how do we make this livelihood better? Because in Turkana County, most of the indigenous women, the Turkana women now are depending on charcoal. Not that they want to cut trees, because there is no other livelihood to do. So I think we should do again a lot of agroecology campaigns to support livelihood diversification, so that our women do not depend only on livestock, so they can grow even other things like kitchen gardening, tree planting. Also, if we enable them plant trees that they can use to feed the animals like fodder. So that is, again, another campaign to stop climate change. So that is my contribution. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Monica. So probably Monica is challenging us for the organizations that are mainly based in Nairobi. Maybe we should look on going expanding our branches and trying to reach and creating an impact to these communities. Because just like my say, we're planting 20 trees one side, there is probably someone felling 50 trees on the other side. Yeah, so maybe it's something that we should look into, creating branches and making an impact. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. As all our speakers mentioned about the biggest challenge has been like canceling activities, and at least most of them, like Caro, has been able to maneuver through getting her partners, because her in Baringo, getting her partners on the ground to at least do the groundwork in times when there's lockdown in Nairobi. And also, the online platform has also enabled us like to adopt the new normal, because with such discussions that we are able to impact and create more awareness. Also, since we are all on social media and organization pages, we should maximize the platforms to do information sharing to the public and make them more aware. Mainly because, like Queenie was talking about African conservation stories, if we can highlight such bigger stories, and even the ones that are here in Kenya, like stories of Kamnarok, like Kamnarok Dry, stories of the effects of climate change. If we can highlight those stories and at least at the same time educate people on what to do to at least reverse these cycles, that will be also a greater thing to do. Also, like every other, like Emma said, on each activity that we do, it should create an impact. Yeah, and also we can also look into power of partnerships. Partnerships go a long, long way. Imagine creating an activity where like 10 or 20 environmental organizations, like for example, the Greening Gong Road activity that was cancelled. It had actually many partners, which enabled the message to reach a bigger public. Yeah, we are still hoping that the partners can still do that when the COVID situation is a bit better. Yeah, so that is my contribution, and at least reaching to everyone to at least take the personal responsibility in matters environment, in matters restoration. Start from a personal level. Your waste, yeah, and also the consumption. So the little impact that you can have, you don't have to go along with the little impact that you can make on a daily basis in your life. We can always start there. So before we close, Paul, you have any contribution to make?
Not really. Janet, you've been a very good moderator, and I think something's coming out of the chat that I really strongly agree with is, yes, from Monica, we need to focus on arid and semi-arid areas. They need our attention when it comes to restoration, and I think Michael and the rest of the guys who've been in the restoration space, you realize that most people actually consider arid areas and even deserts as wastelands, right? But it's a lot of opportunity to really conserve and restore these ecosystems because they also have their own purpose in the conservation world. So I do agree with you. And actually GLF Africa this year is themed around drylands restoration. So maybe we can also look into that and how we can change the perspectives on these. There is also GLF Nairobi, who are also like highly working on these same spaces. So if you want to also like engage on how you can work with in restoration across cities or any part you are around, I think just reach out to us at KEAN. We can connect you to these some of these groups that are working on such restoration activities. And then Kevin Lunzalu, thanks for the information you shared on the chat. Global Kenya Youth Biodiversity Network is partnering with Equity Bank to plant 23,000 trees this season. So if you'd like to partner with Global Youth Biodiversity Network Kenya, kindly reach out to Kevin and the organization at info@youthforbiodiversity.org. And I think that would be a good it would be a good collaboration. And to the rest of the organizations that have actually partnered, I think all of us attending have heard that we need to partner, we need to collaborate. So let's reach out to everyone and let's make these collaborations work for all of us and for posterity. Back to you, Janet.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. So opportunities are out there. Organizations are always calling on volunteers to either plant trees, to do a cleanup, to do invasive species control. Yeah, and social media is also a good platform to take advantage of these opportunities. So thank you all for attending today's meeting, and I hope it has challenged you on one way or the other. It's a recorded session, so we are going to share the link much later so that you can always share with your friends and also listen at your personal time. Yeah, so we are going to end the meeting. Thank you all for attending, and happy Earth Day. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.